really like about this story and what I have come to really love about being a mentor is the people that we can change, who we bring in, and they go through all the steps and all the levels of our multifamily program. And by that, what I mean is you're going to see that he has been a passive in deals. He has been a lead investor in deals, and he has been an IRO in deals. He owned his own deal, independent rental owner, to learn what he was doing before he took other people's money, and he started helping them do the same. So we're going to hear the whole story tonight. Peter, come on up.
Hey there. So glad you guys could be here tonight in person. It's good to see familiar faces. I've got several passives in this deal in here tonight too, which is really cool. But I guess a little bit about me. My background, which part are we here? What are we talking
You're on this slide.
We're on this slide.
That's
all right.
The next one.
Okay. So I am a lead investor now. This is my 5th multifamily purchase that we'll be talking about tonight. I do have another 120 unit property that we're not talking about tonight, but I do own that we've got about 40 passive partners in that deal. We've had that about 3 years. We're doing well with that, distributing about 9% there. I have generally owned in college towns, then that didn't really happen by choice. Just the deals that I found ended up being there. So this is the 4th deal I bought in a college town. I had 3 in Nacogdoches, 2 we've gone full cycle on. We more than 100% return on investor investments. And then now, like Scott said, I did have that independent rental owner property. We had that for 18 months. I've done a case study on that a couple of times, and we pulled out about 200% return on that in about 18 months. So that was a good deal for us.
So let that sink in. His first property he bought as an independent owner, put his money in it, and 18 months later he got not 1x, not 2x, but really 3x back out of it,
Yeah,
right?
'cause
Because your original money times 2.
Yeah, we put in $350 and got $1 million check out of it. So that was a happy day.
Yeah.
I still have the picture in my phone of all those digits. So yeah, and then we're also passive investors as well. I've been a part of maybe 25 deals, probably still 15 of them are active right now. We've gone full cycle on several of them. I do have a vacation rental property. That's not what Lifestyles teaches, but just so you'll know kind of a little bit more about me, I do have one of those. My background is in audiology. I'm a doctor of audiology, graduated from Texas Tech, and I practiced probably 20 years, but maybe the past 10 years was in private practice, and I owned Beltone Hearing Aid locations here in Houston. At one point, I owned in West Texas, Eastern New Mexico, so I think my highest count was maybe 18 locations across Texas and New Mexico. When I decided to retire and sell, I had 13 here in Houston. I'd already sold the rest of them. So I was at a point where I was kind of getting burned out, ready to do something different. My spouse is an emergency medicine physician, high burnout rate in anything medical, really. I mean, all jobs. I mean, in all reality, we all get burnt out with our 9-to-5 jobs, and I guess ERs aren't 9 to 5, but they're main jobs. So that's kind of our background, and the point of what we were trying to do is find a better way of life, a better quality of life. I was burning my candle at both ends. I was seeing patients. I was managing 30 plus employees at any one time. Marco is 12-hour shifts, 10, 14 shifts a month. So that's just a lot of work, a lot of stress. And it was time to kind of step back and figure out another plan of action. So that's where Lifestyles came into play. And I was lucky enough that I was able to have a business to sell to get started in this investment journey. So it may be a little bit different story than what you are experiencing, but this is just kind of how I started my investment program.
And then with all that success, and on the slide, the most important thing we haven't talked about is where's the picture?
Oh, yeah, we were in Banff. We were in Canada. So
nice.
We love to travel. And as Sorrell said, we met in the Gulf, Cozumel. I was with my friend Kathy out here that she's new to Lifestyles as well. And we were on a dive trip, and I think it was day 3. I mean, usually there's 10, 12 of us on a boat, and we kind of just start migrating our ways around the boat every day when we're on there. And I think we were day 2 or 3, and it was our turn to sit next to each other, and it just, real estate for the rest of the trip. I mean, it was a fun time. Yeah.
And in an effort to catch up to you two, in about 2 weeks, I'm going to Whistler so I can mark Canada off my list.
So, all right, so we kind of talked a little bit about the whys here that we joined that I guess I was reading
Anything
before
we
that.
missed there?
Don't really think
okay.
so. Yeah.
Moving right along.
Okay.
Cool. Okay,
yeah.
let's get to the project.
So the property. So we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary on Valentine's Day with this property. We closed on February 14th of last year. This property was built in 2 phases. It was a mid-90s build for a majority of the property, and then in 2010, the owner built 3 more buildings on that. So it's kind of a dual vintage here. 128 units. We do have 4 floor plans. It's got a mix of studios, 1 bedrooms. We have some 1 bedrooms with a study, which some people actually use as a 2nd bedroom if they've got kids, maybe a single parent, or somebody that has a small child that they would like to have a small bedroom that they don't really need a full 2-bedroom or can't afford that. We've got that option, but then we also have 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartments. So there's a little bit of a choice there. We bought this thing for $10.6 million, so $82 a door. This was a lot of money for me. My last purchase was $55 a door, and before that I was in the 40s. So this was a big step for me to go to $82 a door. And we did it. Interesting story, but we did end up putting about 46% down, which this is not what Lifestyles teaches. We know this.
Before you go off your
Yeah,
chain,
yes. So
let's read the rest of the line.
So-
7 years remaining IO.
So we bought this, we did not get a new loan on this property. The guy that built this property had owned it since he built it in the 90s. And he owned it free and clear, and I guess about 5 years ago, he put an agency loan on there for 3.2%, 3.21%. So you guys know what was happening last year, 2 years ago with interest rates. You know, new loan interest rates were close to 7%, 6.5%, close to 7%. And when we heard this opportunity to assume the current owner's loan at 3.21%, we jumped on it. So that is unconventional in that we had to put more down than what we normally would in a normal Lifestyles deal. But again, we have 7 years left on this deal. I raised an extra $900,000 so that we could do the rehabilitation that needed to be done externally and for the interior rehabs that we needed to do as people moved out, and we wanted to upgrade the interior portions. So
everything's lined up here. It is low leverage, but it's an incredible interest rate in today's market. 7 years of remaining interest-only payments on this thing. And you guys will probably get into this over the weekend a little more. I don't want to belabor this too much, but look, for running the thing, he gets paid, right? But he gets paid to multiply your money. The first thing that happens, however, is if you're an investor in this, you get your $6.25 million out of it before he gets paid. So the investors come first if you're going to be a passive in a deal like this, regardless of what the down payment or anything else is.
Yeah.
This is a lead deal, right?
Yes.
yes.
How many investors do you have?
So we've got 104.
104 investors.
Yep.
And they're all right here in Houston?
No, they are
No,
not all
okay.
right here in Houston. We've got it coast to coast.
All right. Tell the camera out there.
Coast to coast.
Coast to coast. That's right. Yeah.
And of that $6 million that you've got in there, what's your smallest investor?
The smallest amount? Ooh. I'm going to say 25,000, but I may have let somebody new in for 15, but that could be a different deal too. So I do accept smaller amounts when needed and when it fits the person's investment needs. So
Yeah, the main thing that you have to line up here is whatever his investment criteria and his plans are, do they meet your personal financial needs? If not, there's another 20 deals to pick from that might be closer aligned with what your goals are.
all right, so this is interior. Some of these units haven't been touched since they were built in the mid-90s. And I mean, you'll find that a lot in multifamily, and that's fine. What I have found thinking about doing unit turns and interior rehabs is that I used to think I had to go in and replace all floors, all fixtures, lights, fans, repaint, do all new appliances. You don't have to do that. I budgeted for that, and if we don't use it, that just goes back to the investors. But we've got it set aside in case we do. But these are a couple of photos of units that we have gone through, and we've repainted cabinets, we've done new floors, we put new appliances in. So there's a little bit of a difference between the before picture and the after pictures on the insides. And you kind of want that wow when people come in to take a look at your property, because we're in Bryan, Texas. We're a college town. There's a lot of choices. There's a lot of options that they can choose from. So it doesn't have to be the most modern interior, but it needs to be nice, clean, and looks new. And yeah, I mean, somebody just said it, clean and functional is what the model is, but I like it to look a little bit nicer as well, so.
Some exteriors?
Yeah, so exterior, we replastered the pool. We put up, I'm gonna say maybe 50 lights, LED lights on the exterior parts. We've got 16 buildings in this property. I like having properties where there's more units and less buildings, but this one just happened to be more buildings, and I like the whole property, so I bought it. But the lighting was very, very poor when we got this thing. So we put probably 55, 60% more lights on the outside just to really, really light this place up. The other thing we did, if you see in the doorway where the stairs are, that's 4 doors right there. We actually put LED lights where people have their ability to turn on and off their lights. We took that ability away and put just sensored lights. So those lights are always on for all 128 units every time it goes dark outside. So that was something that we decided that needed to happen as well, because nobody turns on their porch lights. So the office as well, you can see on the left side, that's what people saw when they walked in, and the right is kind of what we turned it into. And in all reality, this, I don't know what y'all are looking at, the top left portion, there was nothing there when we bought it. It was just empty space. It had a shelf, and that's where all the packages were stored for residents. When the mail came every day, they would store in that corner, so when people walked in, new prospects, all you saw was a mail room. So we definitely had to change that and get that taken care of. So this is just a little bit of what we did for the office.
All right, so let's talk about the numbers. In year one, we're now at the end of year one.
Yep, just at the end of year one.
So these are where you ended up. Years 2 and 3 are your projections going forward.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, how do we want to go through this? We're not going to just sit here and read numbers, but, I mean, you can see the numbers up there. The thing that, I wish this may be on a different slide.
Well, I mean, let's talk about some things here. You know, your rents kind of are what they are. Have you increased them since you've gotten in there?
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to think, if we put that in this slide or if I just give that to my investors. But I think so far we have increased rents 7 or 8% since we bought last year.
All right, so that's a good jump in the first year. Going forward, we've got about, if I'm doing it in my head, but 5% the second year, and really pretty conservative in that third year, maybe only 3% or something.
Right,
like
it's
that.
only 3%.
Yeah.
And the reason I did that is because we've already met the year 2 pro forma in some of these numbers. And so since we're only going out 3 years now, I kind of had to make up that extra year. So,
Okay.
And I guess the other thing that I was going to say, the thing I was trying to remember if it was on this slide or not, was that we've gone up 29% in NOI in the year we've had it.
Wow, 29% gain. That's huge. You'll get into NOI and what that means to valuation and so forth over the weekend. We'll talk about it a little bit, I think, on the next slide or the slide after that. But I'll go to the bottom line here. All that cash flow equates to about a 7.3% return that you're paying out.
And I do want to say that is before the lead comp. So,
Okay.
so yeah, that's total.
And we've got some increase. Now, I remember a couple of years ago where the banks were paying 5%, and we had to get above that just to make people happier. Why take any risk at all, right? Well, the banks are pulling back, and I don't know what you're getting on yours. There are some out there that are still paying 4. Some of them are trying to creep down. I just had a talk with Wells Fargo about some of mine that had some sort of promotional rate that's run out. And so I'm negotiating that next week on some of mine. But this is, 60% more than you're getting in the bank now. Plus, there are other things he's doing, like the NOI increase, and we're going to get into a slide on what that's going to mean in a total payout somewhere down the road. Okay.
More numbers.
more numbers, but there's that NOI, where we are today, what the projected is, and that second line item, property value, 13.3. What'd you tell us you paid for this thing?
10.6.
That's what that NOI increase did. Now, it's not cash today, but it's a pretty nice forced savings account, right? And it's going to come down somewhere later. That debt payoff, right now it's not changing too much. You've got some IO going on, but
Well, no, IO was out when we got it, but.
Oh, it is now?
Yeah, it is out, so it goes down a little bit.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, we are paying that down.
If you were to sell it today, that next line says what I told you before. First of all, the $6.25 million is returned to the investors. There's cash-on-cash distributions taking place, and then there's total equity capture under all of that. So all of this, if we jump through the numbers, the projected return after 3 years on this, $4.6 million, right?
Yep.
74%, 25% per year average. How's that for you? Okay? Pretty good? And what's your goal as far as hold period and things like that for your investors?
So in the plan, I said 5 to 7 years just because we have a 7-year
how much time
loan.
left?
So yeah, so we need to, do something, probably exit within 7 years. My history has been I typically hit the pro formas of years 4 or 5 in the first couple of years, so we've tended to sell a little bit early. So I don't know what we're going to do, but the plan was to hold probably 5, 6 years. So we'll see what ends up happening and how quickly we get to where we want to be.
And that's where I was talking about earlier. When you're analyzing deals, and you will have choices inside of lifestyles, you need to figure out how long do you have some sort of retirement, a wedding to pay for, anything like that, what your personal situation is and when you need those cash outs to happen somewhere down the road. And line that up with the deal that the lead investor is putting together and make sure that you're on the same track with that individual deal. I have deals that have incredibly low interest rates. I have told my members, I'm never selling this thing. Generation skip it, give it to your grandchildren, not your kids, because if you want out, I'm going to buy you out because that's part of my plan. Got other deals, kind of a fix and flip. I want in and out of that deal in 3 years or less.
Oh,
So
no flipping.
call it what you want.
You said that short F word.
Call it what you want. Let me rephrase it then. 3 years, I want to double my money and get out. How's
Shorter
that?
term hold.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's move on to how'd you increase the NOI?
All right, so several things. Raising rents, yeah, here's that. So 7% this past year, we've raised the rents. Other income, we've raised 73%. So that's pet rent, pet fees, recapturing water. The old owner wasn't charging for sewer, trash, pest control, those types of things. We have washer and dryer in every unit. So I've got a little fee that we put all these things in and kind of bump that up. They were charging for parking for some random reason that didn't really make sense. So we've tried to figure out other ways to recapture that money because there's no reason for them to charge for parking. It wasn't assigned or covered. So they were doing some interesting things. But one of the biggest things that we did on day one is we went back to every unit that had pets and didn't register their pets and said, you've got pets. Now we need rent. We need pet fees. And that's been a good source for us. I guess what I put on here is kind of how we got some of that increase in money is we put in black appliances in some of the units. We put vinyl plank floors, fresh paint, and like I said before, the new fans and light fixtures. I thought we were gonna have to do that on every unit. We don't. We're able to push rents even without doing that on every single unit. So, we'll pick and choose. Maybe a couple units need a refrigerator that looks like it needs to be replaced. The other appliances are fine, so let's do that. If they're all white in there, I will buy a white fridge. I'm not above that. So I used to think everything had to be black appliances. It doesn't. So, and on the expense side, most of it has been trying to increase our revenue. But the one thing that I did do after we purchased, well, I guess on day one, the old owner had 4 people on staff for 128 units. They had 2 people in the office and 2 people outside the office. So I've changed that to 1 and 1. So whereas I can't think of what the exact number is, but basically my payroll is half of what theirs was when they were running it. So that's the expense side that I probably didn't point out here.
And to touch on something he said, one of the things we do when we're acquiring these properties, we have what's called a due diligence period. And the mentor and maybe the consultant goes out and we audit every lease. So 128 files we went through to see what it said, and we walked every unit. And when we're walking units, we're doing kind of a property condition report. So he's analyzing, okay, this is how many fridges I think I'm gonna need, this is how many AC units, et cetera. But one of the big things he touched on is we look for pets, because somehow they sneak in and they're not on the lease. And then you go back and you compare it to the rent roll and the ledgers and you find out who's paying for those pets to be there. And it's incredible how many we find in the woodwork that we can now charge for and how much it increases the rent and the NOI.
Yep. All right.
Lifestyle's changed your life.
Well, I'm here instead of worrying about my business that I had with Beltone, and that's been a huge, huge stress relief. So I was able to retire 44. I mean, that's 9 years ago. So I did that, retired in 2016, so it'll be 9 years this year. Multiple income streams, passive. I've got the lead deals. I know the vacation rental isn't part of this program, but we've got that as well. Work-life balance has been so much better. I do still work a lot, but I get to choose how I do it, when I do it, and kind of get to set the whole parameters for what's happening. I did get into shape a little bit after I sold my business, but it's not stuck. And then travel. I mean, the flexibility to travel. They were talking earlier about PTO and vacation time and all the kinds of things that limit what you get to do and when you do it and how you do it. I get to work how I want and where I want. So on that dive trip with Kathy and Sorrell, I had my computer. We dove in the morning and I was working in the afternoons. I have been working on contracts when I've been on trips before. And it's just a great way to do business. So work balance, life is just a much, much, much nicer deal than having to answer to corporate world.
You know what I pictured when he said his laptop out on vacation? You and I sitting at the table in Nice overlooking the harbor and the Mediterranean off to the right, and we both had our laptops out. For better or worse, it's hard to give it up sometimes.
So what I'm looking for, I want to get both of us retired completely from the medical field. So, I mean, I can't tell you how many more properties that looks like for me, but I anticipate another 2 to 4 lead deals before I'm all finished and only going to be passive. But the goal is to be 100% passive and get to travel all the time, not just some of the time.
And do stained glass projects.
Yeah. I'm a stained glass person, and I love making lamps and stained glass things. And I haven't done as much of that lately, so I want to get back into that.
All right, so let's talk about who's on the team.
So Lee Carroll worked with me from the Houston office. Jeff worked with me from the central office. Randa was out there. Diana Mon was our agent that helped us with the deal here. And, you know, the leads, the other lifestyles leads, you can't thank your peers enough for all of the work that they do with you and for you, and the phone calls and the texts and looking over your plans, letting them have input on what they see you need to do because they've lived through it as well. So you lean on your leads, you lead passives, big part of my team. So you're not thanked enough, and I really appreciate you being on my teams and all the deals that I've done. I can't do what I do if I don't have you as partners. And then Alan, I'm not sure if he's here or not, but my key principal that was part of our lending process.
All right, questions?
Do you have plans to make a supplemental loan very soon to get most of the investors?
So the interesting thing about this
Can you
loan,
repeat the question?
the question was, do I have a plan to add a supplemental loan to this this loan.
So for those of you that don't know what that is, you have obviously a primary mortgage on a property. He has an incredible amount of equity in this deal because he put so much down. You can do what's called a supplemental loan and pull some of that out and distribute it to your investors.
And we have to make that decision this summer because next fall will be my limit to when I can do that or not do that. So I'll be talking to the mentors and we're gonna figure out if it makes sense to do that, or do we just hold it, and is it gonna be an easier exit if we don't do a supplemental? So we'll analyze both things. Does it make sense to do the supplemental and hold it longer, or exit and not do the supplemental?
What else?
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much. This was great. For your IRO property, were you doing IRO as a means to becoming a lead, or?
No,
Okay.
I was not. I was not ever gonna be a lead. I was just gonna be an IRO so I could just be an IRO. But what I found out being the IRO is that it was great, but I was able to scale my business quicker and I guess just quicker if I became a lead. So if I made X amount as an IRO, I could reinvest that as an IRO and make X amount again. But what I found out quickly is if I sold that IRO deal and put that in multiple lead deals and some passive deals, I could get those financial goals met much quicker.
By the way, I'm glad you made it out. I was thinking of you when I read his presentation because you're going down almost exactly the same cycle that he has gone down. They're new members and I've been working with them. Very similar plan.
I get that question a lot, and I mean, I'm honest about it. I mean, the IRO journey is great. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I needed to make a lot of money quicker. And so being a lead just helped me get there a little bit quicker. And
From an investment standpoint, it's a
Yeah.
way to be in more than one place at one time.
yeah,
'Cause you can
very
only do
much
so
so.
much on your own.
Yeah, as an IRO, you're in one property. And if you're passive and lead, you can be invested in multiple properties and have all that working for you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
What else? Online? Nothing there?
I got a question for you.
Okay.
What would you tell the new folks in the room or online? Because you sat in these same chairs 9 years ago, right? Or however many years ago.
Just take the first step and invest. Yes, you need to make sure it's the right deal for you. Not every deal is the right deal for every person, but you are not going to get where you want to be if you don't get started. So.
All right, let's give him a hand.